and welcome back to my channel. My name's Bridget. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about kidney transplants and the qualifications to get a kidney transplant and the wait times and yeah, just a little bit about it. So let's get started. So, when I was diagnosed, I was 14. I got my transplant when I was 16. I waited about 2.5 years. I was a pediatric patient, so it's normally about 2 to 3 years, which is normal. Although for a year and a half, I wasn't even active on the list, and I'll go into that a little bit. But for adults, it's about 8 to 10 years of a wait, so it is a little bit longer, and that is for 18 and over, which is ridiculous. Usually common when people are on, obviously everybody on dialysis needs a kidney transplant, unless you're super lucky and you do regain kidney function, which does happen very commonly. But majority of the time you do need a kidney transplant. Once usually about 80 to 90% of your kidney function is gone, you get put on dialysis, and from there you're put on the kidney transplant list. When you're put on the kidney transplant list, you're not always active, which means basically you keep moving down the list, you keep going in line and everything, but if you're number one on the list, it doesn't mean you can get a transplant. You don't get any phone calls. It kind of means that you have other qualifications that you need to get done in order to be active on the list, so you can get those phone calls of people that, can donate. So the qualifications are very different for different people. For me, because I had an autoimmune disease, there's many different things I had to go through. I had to go through interviews. I don't know if every process is the same for everybody, but I do know that they do need you to be emotionally, mentally, and physically healthy to get a kidney transplant. I know being interviewed by my transplant team, they were very concerned, especially with young teens, because I was only 16, about suicide, about drug use, alcohol. They were very, very worried about just, the emotional and mental state that I was in when receiving my transplant. So that was a big part of it. Also, I was very, very, very skinny. I've been tiny my whole life. My nickname is literally Tiny. My mom and my sister call me Tiny. But I've been tiny my whole life, and my biggest problem was gaining weight. I had a really, really low BMI, and I could not gain any weight for the life of me, and I was throwing up all the time. I had horrible nausea. I would wake up every morning and throw up. It was really hard for me to keep my medications down, like food down. It was really hard for me. So making sure that I could gain weight, especially with everybody knows how the diet is. So with the diet that I was on, the restrictions of everything, there was very minimal I could eat to gain weight. And especially just because of my nausea, it was really hard. I went to a lot of therapy because that was a part of what I had to do, but also because it was a really, traumatic time, and it was probably the smartest thing that I did at that time. But yeah, I went to therapy for the 2.5 years that I did. I had to make sure I gained weight, which took me a long time. And I also had my good pasture syndrome, so I had to make sure that that was in remission, and it had to be in remission for 6 months in order for me to actually go active on the list, because they didn't want me to go active, and then a month later, I'm back and I have my disease again that possibly attacked the new organ. So they did want to wait a little while to make sure that everything was good. It took me a year to go into remission, and then another 6 months that I had to wait until I was active on the list. And then from then on, I was active, and it only took me about 4 months being active on the list when I got my phone call. And it was insane. It was the craziest day of my life. I remember I woke up, and my mom was just kind of like, hey, they have a kidney for you. Do you want it? And we had gotten a couple other calls before, and it was kind of like, oh, yeah, of course I want the kidney, yeah. And no, she was like, no, this is really, they think this might actually work. And I was like, okay, yes, I want this kidney, let's do it. That was at 7 a.m. And I remember when she woke me up, she shook me, and I woke up and I was like, oh God, what did I do? I'm in trouble, what's going on? So I wasn't in trouble. It was great news. I was 7 in the morning. We literally packed our bags as soon as we got the phone call, but you don't go to the hospital until way later at night, and which we didn't. We didn't go till 10 p.m. at night, and they were like, you can literally get set up and ready for the transplant and literally get wheeled down, and there might be something that happens that you might not get the kidney. So this whole time I'm like, no, I'm getting this kidney. I'm determined it's gonna happen. And that was my call, and it was the greatest thing ever. waking up and just having my life back, I can't explain that. I could not explain that. It was literally the best feeling ever. I was normal. I was Bridget again, and it was amazing. I'm honestly so blessed of everything that I've been through with this autoimmune disease and my kidney transplant. It's brought me so far to just realize how lucky we are and just how quickly things can be taken away. I was, taken away but also given to you, because I was diagnosed with my autoimmune disease. I went to bed on Thanksgiving thinking everything was fine, and I woke up the next day and I was on dialysis. But the same thing, I went to bed one night on dialysis and woke up the next day with a brand new organ. And that, I think, is amazing. But yeah, I mean, the process of it took about 6 hours. The surgeon was absolutely amazing. My scar is barely noticeable. I used vitamin E oil. Yeah, I literally got like the little pills and popped them and like did fresh to make sure that I wouldn't get a scar. I did that on all mine. It's my hemo scar, and then I have my peritoneal and my transplant scar. My kidney was from a 32-year-old male deceased donor who passed away in a car crash. That's the only information that I know about my donor. He was a runner as well. He was an athlete. I reached out to his family twice and sent them letters. I never heard back though, which I completely understand. I couldn't imagine losing somebody. Every year when, we celebrate our kidneys and, the rebirth, it's hard to know that someone else is, grieving and mourning someone on that day. So it's definitely hard. But, it's amazing just how many people you can save when you donate, because he didn't just save me, he saved 4 or 5 other people, and that's amazing. And oh my goodness, I'm trying to think, what else did we do with what else, all of the crazy things that I've been through. Yeah, honestly, I think probably the hardest part for me with my qualifications was gaining weight. I think that's probably hardest with anybody, losing weight, gaining weight, how your body works. It's very hard to work with it. What I ended up doing, honestly, that helped me gain my weight to get my kidney transplant was I was on hemodialysis for a year. And then I went and did peritoneal dialysis. And with peritoneal dialysis, I had my Renvela. And I ended up working that out so I could eat more phosphorus. And you're pretty much allowed any potassium when you're on peritoneal dialysis. So I basically tricked my body and worked out how to eat basically anything I wanted and just double my Renvela intake, which are your phosphorus binders, which I'm pretty sure everyone on dialysis has to take phosphorus binders. But I worked the system and I gained weight and it helped me get my transplant and it was amazing. But I'm really curious about everybody else. What are your qualifications? If it's similar for you, I'm sure it's all similar for a lot of people. Very different though. I'd love to hear how it is for everybody. Leave some comments below. Let me know how your experience is going with everything. I'd love to know how more things are for everybody. I want to reach out. I want this to be more of a group thing. I just want everyone to be connected and know that we're all together. And I felt so alone through that time. I felt like no one is going, and it's so hard to find people that are. So when you do, it's very special. So any questions about anything, please leave them down in the comments below. I love making these videos and getting all these comments on Facebook and here and everything from you guys. So I really, really appreciate it. More videos are coming, and thanks again, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe.